The Islamic Dilemma. The critics claim the Quran trips over itself by affirming the Gospel and the Torah as having divine origins, yet dares to disagree with them. Shocking, right? Their argument boils down to this: the Quran should mirror the Bible word for word, as if its sole purpose is to act like a celestial photocopy. Here's a reality check: it doesn't, because it wasn't meant to. The Quran's confirmation of earlier scriptures is general, not an absolute confirmation. Think of it like a city map. It shows you the main roads, landmarks, and neighborhoods, but it's not flawless. Some street names might be outdated, a few alleys might be missing, and the scale could be off. It's still useful, but you'd be foolish to treat it as gospel. No pun intended. The Quran takes a similar stance. It affirms the divine origin of previous scriptures while correcting distortions and omissions introduced by human hands. The Quran makes this crystal clear in chapter 5, verse 48, describing itself as both a confirmation and a criterion over previous texts. To call this a contradiction is to completely misunderstand its purpose and separate the author from his own text. Now let's look at a few examples of what critics mistakenly label as contradictions, but are actually deliberate corrections. The Gospels treat the crucifixion and resurrection as its centerpiece, the foundation of Christian theology. The Quran, however, takes a sledgehammer to that foundation. In chapter 4, verse 157, it flat out denies the crucifixion, stating that it was a mere appearance. The author of the Quran, whoever you may believe him to be, is clearly very aware of the content of the Gospels, that they teach a crucified Christ. If you mean to tell me the author of the Quran believed and confirmed every letter in the Torah and Gospel, and yet mistakenly contradicted them by denying a crucifixion, you would have to be lying to yourself. In Genesis chapter 22, Abraham lies to his son, Isaac, claiming that they're off to sacrifice an animal. But in chapter 37, verse 102 of the Quran flips the script. Abraham is honest, informing his son of God's command to sacrifice him. Why? Because in the Quranic worldview, prophets don't lie. This is no error. It's not a contradiction. It's a correction of what the Quran sees as a flawed portrayal. Again, the Quran here is given a direct refutation to the biblical tradition. The author cannot have believed the Torah and the Gospel to be true in the absolute sense, while explicitly opposing it directly. The Bible claims Aaron crafted an idol for the Israelites to worship in Exodus chapter 32. The Quran, however, pins the blame on a figure called As-Samiri, portraying Aaron as a voice of reason who opposed idol worship. The Quran refuses to depict prophets as morally compromised pagan idol worshippers. So let's be clear. The Quran does not mimic the Bible because it wasn't meant to mimic the Bible. It affirms its divine origins while setting the record straight. The real dilemma isn't with the Quran, it's with critics who refuse to read it on its own terms. If you're still confused, maybe it's time to upgrade your own map.